The air is thick with the stench of unwashed bodies, rotting food, and human waste spilling from open gutters. It's 14th century London, and you're standing in a narrow, muddy street, the sky above choked with smoke from wood fires. The crowd presses in, merchants shouting, children screaming, a pig rooting through a pile of refuse just feet away. Your skin crawls as a passerby brushes against you, their coarse woolen tunic reeking of sweat and something fouler. This is not the romanticized past of shining knights and grand castles. This is the gritty, grimy reality of medieval Europe, where hygiene was a foreign concept, and survival often meant enduring a world saturated in filth. Welcome to an era where cleanliness was not next to godliness, it was barely a thought at all. For centuries, Europeans lived in conditions that would make modern stomachs churn. Bathing was rare, sanitation was non-existent, and disease was a constant companion. Tonight, we peel back the layers of history to reveal a truth both fascinating and repulsive. How Europeans lived without hygiene, and how their world of muck and misery shaped the course of civilization. The smell of survival. Let's start with the senses. Imagine waking up in a medieval peasant's home. The walls are wattle and daub sticks plastered with mud and straw. The floor is packed earth, damp from last night's rain seeping through the thatched roof. You share this single room with your family, maybe a few animals, and a straw pallet crawling with lice. The air is heavy, a suffocating blend of body odor, animal dung, and the sour tang of spoiled milk from a bucket in the corner. There's no chimney, so smoke from the central fire stings your eyes and clings to your clothes. This is not a home as we know it. It's a battleground against the elements, pests, and the creeping rot of daily life. Hygiene, as we understand it, was not a priority. Bathing was seen as a luxury, even a danger. Many believed that water weakened the body, opening pores to let in disease. The church didn't help. Some priests preached that bathing was vain, a sin of pride, or worse, a gateway to lust. In the 13th century, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux famously declared, "The body that loves frequent baths is filthy in its soul." For the devout, cleanliness was spiritual, not physical. A clean heart mattered more than a clean body. When people did bathe, it was a rare event, often tied to rituals like weddings or religious festivals. Public bathhouses existed in some cities, but they were more social hubs than hygiene centers. Picture a dimly lit room, steam rising from wooden tubs where dozens of strangers soaked together, the water murky and shared by all. By the late Middle Ages, these bathhouses gained a reputation for immorality, and many were shut down during plague outbreaks, blamed for spreading disease rather than preventing it. The streets of squalor. Step outside, and the situation worsens. Medieval cities were open sewers. In Paris, London, or Florence, streets doubled as waste dumps. Chamber pots were emptied from windows with a shouted warning, if you were lucky. "Garde-à-l'eau," they'd cry, from the French gardes l'eau, watch out for the water. But it wasn't just water. Urine, feces, and kitchen slop rained down, mixing with mud and animal droppings. The result was a sludge so thick that stepping stones were sometimes placed across streets without sinking ankle deep. In 1372, a London ordinance banned throwing dung, garbage, or entrails into the streets, but enforcement was a fantasy. Butchers slaughtered animals in the open, leaving blood and offal to rot. Tanners dumped vats of urine-soaked hides near rivers, poisoning the water supply. The River Fleet in London was so clogged with waste that it became a stagnant mire, its stench wafting for miles. Even the wealthy couldn't escape. In 1340, King Edward III complained that the Thames was so polluted it was an intolerable nuisance to his palace at Westminster. Sanitation systems were rudimentary at best. Some cities had communal latrines, wooden benches with holes over pits or rivers. But these were often overflowing and poorly maintained. In rural areas, people relieved themselves in fields or behind bushes. Privacy was a luxury few could afford. The lack of sanitation bred disease. Dysentery, typhoid, and cholera thrived in these conditions, though people didn't understand the connection. They blamed miasmas, bad air, rather than the filth underfoot. The body as a battleground. Now let's talk about the human body itself. Without regular washing, skin became a breeding ground for parasites. Lice and fleas were universal, infesting hair, clothes, and bedding. Itching was a fact of life, and scratching left sores that invited infection. Teeth were another horror. Dental care was almost non-existent. People might chew on herbs like mint or rub their teeth with cloths, but decay was rampant. By age 30, many had black, rotting stumps where teeth should be. Bad breath was so common it was barely noticed, masked only by the overwhelming stench of everything else. Clothing didn't help. Most people owned 1 or 2 outfits, worn until they fell apart. Wool and linen trapped sweat and dirt, becoming stiff with grime. Washing clothes was labor-intensive, requiring hours of boiling and beating with stones. For the poor, it was easier to let clothes rot than to clean them. Even the wealthy, with their silk and velvet, rarely washed their garments. Instead, they doused themselves in perfumes to mask the smell, a futile effort in a world where everyone reeked. Here was another story. Long hair was fashionable, but a magnet for lice. Wealthy women might spend hours having their hair combed with fine-toothed combs to remove pests, but the relief was temporary. Men, too, suffered. Beards were common, and without regular washing, they became matted with food, sweat, and worse. Shaving was risky. Barbers used shared razors, often unwashed, spreading infections like wildfire. Medicine and misconceptions. What about staying healthy? Medieval medicine was a mix of superstition, guesswork, and occasional wisdom. Without germ theory, people didn't understand how diseases spread. Physicians believed the body was governed by 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, and illness came from imbalance. Treatments like bloodletting or purging were common, often doing more harm than good. A wound cleaned with dirty water or a reused bandage could turn septic, leading to a gruesome death. Herbal remedies were popular, but their effectiveness varied. Some, like chamomile for soothing or willow bark for pain, worked. Others, like mandrake root or ground-up gems, were useless or dangerous. People also relied on charms and prayers, believing illness was divine punishment. In this world, a minor cut could be a death sentence, and a lack of hygiene made every injury a gamble. The Black Death, which swept Europe in the 1340s, exposed the consequences of this filthy existence. Fleas carried by rats thrived in the squalor, spreading plague that killed millions. Corpses piled up in streets, left to rot because no one could bury them fast enough. Survivors, desperate for answers, burned herbs or wore amulets, unaware that the real culprit was the filth they lived in. The slow dawn of cleanliness. By the early modern period, attitudes began to shift, but progress was slow. The Renaissance brought renewed interest in classical texts, some of which praised bathing. Wealthy households installed private bath chambers, though these were still rare. In the 16th century, Queen Elizabeth I reportedly bathed once a month, whether she needed it or not, a quip that reveals how unusual regular bathing remained. Public health measures also emerged. In 1538, King Henry VIII ordered London to clean its streets, though compliance was spotty. By the 17th century, some cities built basic sewer systems, but these often dumped waste directly into rivers, solving one problem while creating another. Soap, made from animal fat and lye, became more common, but it was harsh and expensive. Only the wealthy could afford it regularly. The real turning point came later, with Enlightenment and the rise of germ theory in the 19th century. Scientists like Louis Pasteur and Joseph Lister proved that cleanliness could prevent disease, revolutionizing medicine and daily life. But for centuries before, Europeans lived in a world where filth was normal and survival was a daily triumph over the odds. A world of filth, a legacy of resilience. As we step back from this grim tableau, consider what it meant to live in such conditions. Every day was a struggle against disease, discomfort, and decay. Yet in this world of stench and squalor, people loved laughed, and built the foundations of the modern age. Their resilience is a testament to the human spirit, even as their ignorance of hygiene cost countless lives. The next time you turn on a faucet or step into a shower, remember this. Cleanliness is a modern miracle, hard-won through centuries of trial and error. The past was not just a different time. It was a different world, one where survival meant embracing the unbearable. And in that muck, humanity found a way to endure. This has been a journey into the filthy heart of history. If you've made it this far, you've got a stronger stomach than most. Subscribe for more tales from the sleepless corners of the past, and let us know in the comments. Could you survive a day in medieval Europe? Until next time, stay curious and maybe take a shower.